All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Again, we are still filtering in some people from the waiting room at this moment in time. So everyone is getting together. But as we're letting people in, I want to point you to that slide on your screen. This is our upcoming schedule for Baltimore Data Week. Yesterday, we started off the week with a presentation on the Baltimore Resource Landscape Analysis. A video of that will soon be up on our website and in our learning community. So if you missed it, do not fret. It will be available to you soon. But I do want to draw your attention to the other upcoming events for this week. Tomorrow, in the same time slot, we have a grant writing workshop with Enoch Pratt. That's hosted by Jennifer Mange and Paul Chasen of the Enoch Pratt Free Library. It's going to be really exciting and a great resource for everyone. On Thursday, July 20th, I will be presenting on Vital Signs 21, again, same time slot. And then on Friday, we have the in-person event for Baltimore Data Day. That is 8:30 to 3:30 p.m. At the Merrick School of Business. That little QR code up in the corner will get you to our registration page. If you haven't registered for any of these events, especially the in-person one, please do so now. It helps us with the head count. It helps us with food. We want to feed you. We're really looking forward to the rest of the events this week. So it looks like the waiting room has slowed down a little bit. And I want to welcome everyone to this Lunch and Learn today. My name is Amanda Phillips DeLucas, and in March of this year, I stepped in as the director of the Baltimore Neighborhood Indicators Alliance. So for many of you, I am a new face on this call. I hope to get to know you as the week goes on and perhaps in person at our in-person event. But today, I want to introduce our host of today's presentation, Cheryl Knott, who is the assistant director here at BINIA. So Cheryl Knott is the Assistant Director for the Baltimore Neighborhood Indicators Alliance, Jacob France Institute, and for 16 years, Cheryl has worked to ensure the accuracy, consistency, and reliability of community indicators that describe the quality of life for Baltimore City communities. She coordinates with staff and external data creating agencies to produce customized statistical and research exports and evaluations that examine neighborhood level trends, socioeconomic characteristics, crime and safety, public health, housing and community development, educational achievement, and sustainability. Cheryl does all of those things and more. She is a jack of all trades and knows our data better than anyone in and out. And I'm going to hand the reins over to her for this very exciting presentation and take it away.
All right. Thank you, Amanda. And perfect timing, folks. So, this is Baltimore City, just had a siren go by. So it's going off into the distance. So thanks for joining. I hope that today can be kind of a laid back, fun walkthrough of some stuff that I'm really passionate about, and that is mapping. So as Amanda mentioned, I've been at BINIA for quite a while. My background and my passion is in GIS, so Geographic Information Systems, but also open data. So I am going to be walking us through today a little bit of background information about open data. So what is it? What can we find here in Baltimore, in Maryland? Like what data sets are available for us to take a look at and use and map out using geographic information systems for our neighborhoods? So with all of this, I'm going to be sharing a few PowerPoint slides, and then I'm going to transition to a very hands-on and fingers crossed, live demos can sometimes go a little hairy, but we're going to be walking through ArcGIS Online, which is an online platform that enables users to create and share data visualizations, to share maps with the world. So I live in the Remington neighborhood in Baltimore. I've been here for a couple of years. And I'm going to do a very local to me walkthrough that will show you all. And hopefully, as we're going through this process, you can get some gears turning in your head and think through what kinds of maps and data visualizations can I make for my neighborhood. But I'm going to be focusing in on Remington and looking at some housing data sets. So this is our agenda for today. Hope that it will be a nice casual get together. So make sure to grab a beverage, get yourself a little snack. The upside is that for these virtual presentations, these lunch and learns for Baltimore Data Week, these are recorded. So don't worry about having an open screen where you're trying to follow along live as I'm walking through this demonstration. This video and others are going to be shared to BNEO's YouTube account. So if you follow us on social media, just stay tuned. We'll be sharing links for this video walkthrough along with others. So let's get into it, shall we? So let's go. So let's start off with this very first question of what is open data exactly? So it's a phrase that a lot of people have been using. It's kind of a buzzy phrase to describe data sets, but if you're not someone who uses them all the time, what the heck is it? So open data can very simply just be defined as data that can be freely taken and used for analysis, data visualization, reporting and benchmarking, goal setting, if you're a community, and also accountability back to city agencies, state agencies, federal agencies that are sharing this information. And the best part about open data is that it is open to anyone who can find it and want to use it. So community members and community-based organizations can use open data. Nonprofits can use it in their work. Researchers, teachers, students. I recently just wrapped up teaching at University of Maryland, Baltimore County. I had a lot of my students making maps with open data and government. So these are all things, data sets that are available for everyone to take a look at, that are shared online for people to use and analyze. So open data can take many different forms. So this can include things like data tables, already pre-made maps of information, different types of graphs and charts that are explaining trends that can be seen in open data, as well as technically text reports. So things like PDF files, those can be technically defined as open data, but they can be very tough to work with. So one of the key components of open data is data that can be easily machine read and plugged and played into some sort of platform. And so an open data's format can actually determine how it's being used, by whom, the skill levels, and also within a particular software environment. So for instance, Excel, a particular format might be really suitable for doing some mapping and spatial location analysis. So there's a lot of different agencies, organizations that have been publishing out open data, and both locally within the state of Maryland and also at the federal government, there's a lot of very specific legal mandates that require different agencies as a part of their routine work, their internal audits, their processing, figuring out, hey, how are we operating? They're generating data, but these laws, these acts, these policies require that this information is shared to the public. So not going to go through all of these very specifically, but wanted to make sure I kind of included this here so you can see that there are very specific guidelines for creating out open data portals so that this information can be available to folks. So there's not only the agencies that are creating data and sharing this out with the world, but there's other organizations like the Baltimore Neighborhood Indicators Alliance, where I'm from. So policy, research, educational institutions are also creating open data. So they might not be the original primary source of data and information, but they're able to take information and that synthesis, that analysis, that finding, that reporting, and make that freely available. So for instance, when I first started working for the Baltimore Neighborhood Indicators Alliance way back in 2007, we really just focused on putting out print reports. So if you were interested in learning about data for communities, you had two options, a PDF that you could read on your screen or an actual print version. And we had lots of numbers in these reports, but that data wasn't open. That data wasn't downloadable, available into an Excel format or a mappable format up until probably about a decade ago. And this is an opportunity where BINA has enabled ourselves to publish out all of our different data sets, make them available to the public. And other organizations locally, such as the Baltimore Metropolitan Council, are also groups that are taking information and making it available for others to see, understand, and use. So here's an example of an open data set, and this is one of my favorites actually. So this is a data set that is hosted on the city's open data portal that is published by the Tree Baltimore agency. And this is a data set that has over 121,000 records. And these are all very specific point locations of the city's tree inventory. So if there's a tree that is located in a park, planted on a public street, they have an inventory of it. And they have lots of different fields in their data set. So they have some information about its location, but then information about the species. We have information about the height, the thickness of the tree trunk. All of this is information that the city and the Tree Baltimore agency had been collecting and maintaining for their own internal work, but is now an open data set so that the public can actually see and get this information and have it available for themselves. So this right here, again, an example of an open data set. This is a screenshot of that open data table. And this is one of the types of data sets that we're going to be looking at today. So I had mentioned a few moments ago a little bit about data types. So there's a lot of different formats that can really determine how the data is going to be used and visualized. So there are a few kind of keywords that are bolded on this PowerPoint slide. So consider these some vocabulary words that if you don't already have in your arsenal, perhaps these are ones that you can start using and talking like a GIS, a tech person. So that example that I just showed you, that particular view was really kind of like a flat file. So this is something that you can download into a CSV, a .csv. This is a file format that you can open up in platforms like Excel, but you can also open up into other things like SPSS to do some data management. So you can look at all the rows of data. So that would be your individual records, your place locations, where things are, where people could be. And then those columns, those are specific fields that tell you a little bit of information about what's contained in that data set. And so there's so many different amazing visualizations that can be done with data like this. So if you have data across time, one thing that you can always think about doing is creating a line chart. If you have a lot of those great columns of information, another way of describing those columns would be attributes. You can make bar charts that would describe, for instance, the frequency of those attributes. Pie charts, those are great for showing percentages and proportions of attributes. And so all of this information can be used for creating those types of graphs, those visualizations. But you can also do a process that's known as geocoding or georeferencing. And this enables you to take that flat basic file of data and relate it to a place that exists on the globe, okay? And if you have some sort of spatial information that's included in there, so this could be like a zip code, it could be an address, the name of a neighborhood, or ideally something like some location coordinates, so latitude, longitude information, this will enable you to take that flat data and place it onto a map, which is super duper cool. And so when you are able to have and manage some of that geographic information, you can create a GIS, a geographic information system. Okay, so a GIS is really just a system for managing different data sets. So oftentimes people think of GIS as a software, a skill set, a process, and it's all of the above. And so for today's walkthrough, we're going to be looking at the ArcGIS Online platform for managing some spatial data and information. So we're going to be pulling in some Baltimore City data and creating a GIS. And so when we start thinking about GIS as a product, okay, so what is the GIS? Not just the portal, but what is it? You can really think of it in terms of two basic components. So for a GIS, this digital online map, you need some sort of visual symbology. So that's the actual picture. That's something that says this particular stream is going to be blue. Okay. If you have location information, let's go back to those trees. Those are going to be green dots. Okay. And those dots will show up on the map, and how big are those dots going to be? But behind all of those visuals is a database component to it. So it's that flat file that has the location information and all of those columns, those attributes of data that describe what's contained in there. So not just where's the locations of those trees, but what's the species? What's the height of that tree? When was the last time somebody added it into that inventory? This is all useful and open information for us to look at. And so once you start pulling in different types of data, okay, these are different data layers, okay? So you can think of each layer as being something that's a very specific topic, such as a road network. A different data layer could be the locations, the boundaries of parks. Another one could be the boundaries of neighborhoods. And then that last one would be the locations of those trees planted. And within GIS, because all of those data sets have some sort of spatial information, we can relate them to one another by stacking them on top of one another. And we can both see and understand what is that spatial relationship. Where is that tree in relation to a park? Okay, is it that we have a lot of maple trees that are in parks and not so many as street trees, for instance? Like, these are questions that we can start digging into and answering with GIS. And all of this just lends itself to really cool data storytelling. So as I mentioned, the database and the visuals, and I promise I'll get off trees really soon. But again, like I said, this is one of my absolute favorite data sets. So let's go back to that screen capture. So we could see there that we have some location information. So we've got addresses, we can see the species, so we can see some maple trees here, but then we also have this column here, DBH. And so that stands for diameter at breast height. So that's, what is it, like 3.5, 4 feet off the ground. So how thick is that tree? What's the full diameter of it if you were to do like a cross section of it? And so this is information that is, in this case, numeric. Like, we can see that that's in inches. So we can see that if the number's really high, that's a big tree. The number's low, that's a small tree. And within all this information, we can do some filtering. So I decided to go into this data set and I filtered it. I said, I would like to see some really big trees. Where are the big old trees in Baltimore City? So I did a basic filter to say, I would like to see all of these trees with that diameter or breast height over 4 feet. Okay, so I was able to plug that in and it gave me a map overlay so I could see all of those point locations, and it's being stylized, symbolized with those little tree dot icons on the map. So that's just a really quick example of how GIS can be used and how data, when you start thinking about the attributes that you have, can be used to, again, start showing some interesting things onto a map. So as you're going through and thinking about, okay, so that this is cool, open data exists, I can make maps, I want to make a map. So when you get to that point, when you have that excitement and you say, I want to make a map, here's a couple of things you want to think through. And I usually jot these things down. I have a trusty notebook. Sometimes it's on a Post-it note. What are you trying to show with a particular map? Okay. So are you going to be showing information about people? So where are people located? What are the overall demographics of an area? Okay. The what are you trying to show information, locations of buildings? Are you interested in showing out crime incidents, locations where people have called and reported trash in their neighborhood? Those environmental factors, like where are the city's trees located? You can think through time period. Okay. Are you interested in anything that might exist? Like, give me all the data, all of the years. Or are you interested in what might have been going on in my neighborhood? What does the data say over the past year or so? Okay. So that time period. And then lastly, the where, that location. So obviously we're talking about maps, we're talking about pulling in this data, but are there any specific areas beyond saying, give me everything for the state of Maryland, give me everything for the city of Baltimore? Are there neighborhoods? Are there specific zip codes that you would really like to zoom in on? Okay, so that's your basic checklist for the who, what, when, where. Okay. And then the next key part, and this is where data communication becomes really important, especially if you're sharing this out with some other folks. Who's the audience for this visualization? Is it just you? Well, then, if so, you can do whatever you like with your map. Okay. But if you're hoping to share this with neighbors, with friends, with colleagues, with stakeholders, you're going to have to think through what are appropriate titles and labels and ways of describing this information. So again, if you're focusing in on a particular neighborhood, you're going to have to specify, I'm looking at Remington. Okay. If you're focusing in on specific years, that's a good thing to include on your map. And then lastly, and this is always a fun one, if you're sharing this with folks, how do you want people to interact with it? Okay, what is that user experience going to be like? Do you want people to click on things and have information pull up? Do you want people to search for an address? Do you want people to zoom in, zoom out? So these are all things to think about when you're starting to pull in open data and starting to do some mapping with data. So let's go into a use case. Okay, so as I mentioned, I live in the city, I live in the Remington neighborhood. Okay, so Remington is a neighborhood that's had a lot of population growth over the past couple of years. So let's say over the past 5 years, and I can look out the window, I'm seeing lots of homes for sale. There's a lot of properties that have gone from vacant to occupied, but where? Okay, can I see that on a map? Where can I see that renovated properties are taking vacants to occupied in the Remington neighborhood? What does that data show me? Okay, where can I see this data being represented for my neighborhood? Okay, so I have a couple of specific needs. So I did my little checklist. So I would love to see some demographics for the overall larger neighborhood, but then I want to see those specific point locations of those formerly vacant, now rehab properties that folks are living in. And then bonus, let's see if we've got a couple of moments to do this. Let's also add in, for instance, the meeting location for the community organization. So this is another way to think about, let's pull in data that other folks have already published. Let's get this on the map. But let's say you have data too, okay? I'll also show how we can get that uploaded and integrated into the system as well. So in a moment, I'm going to be shifting away from the PowerPoint. I'm going to be doing a live demo, so please bear with me if one of the city's platforms gets a little slow or the mapping platform, but we're going to be walking through this live. Just a quick reminder, this is being recorded, so you can go back and follow along at your own pace once we get these uploaded to our YouTube page. So please feel free as I'm going through. If you have any questions, if anything is really coming up, I have a second screen over here going. So please feel free to pop things into the chat if you have any questions, any remarks about this process, because we're going to get into it now. So thank you. Let me get a little sip. So let's get online, okay? I recommend using Chrome. I am normally a big Firefox user for internet browsing, but when it comes to me trying to pull down, manage data, do visualizations, on a platform like ArcGIS Online, I tend to prefer Chrome. It is nice, responsive, and usually loads a lot faster. So BNEF staff are also popping some of these links into the chat so that you can, pull them up if you'd like, get them bookmarked. But we're going to be looking at two websites today. So we're going to be pulling up arcgis.com. And when I transition over there, I'll talk a little bit about that platform. And then we're also going to be pulling up the city's open data portal. So Open Baltimore, which is just data.baltimorecity.gov. Okay, so fingers crossed. Like I said, we're transitioning off of the PowerPoint, and let's get these other platforms open. So I'm going to minimize and get over here to ArcGIS. So I have my screen zoomed in just a little bit at 125%, but please let me know if you have any issues seeing it. It just dropped that into the chat. So here I am. So this is just arcgis.com. And when you come to this page, you can go down to the sign in. And yes, you can still click on this even if you do not have an account. And there is a link down here to create an account. Okay. And I see a question from Teresa in the chat. And this is, Teresa, this is a perfect question. I was about to discuss it. So Teresa asks, at what level can we use open data and make our own maps without having a subscription to ArcGIS? Is there a public feature? Yes, there is. So ArcGIS offers many different account types for different types of users. So us at the Baltimore Neighborhood Indicators Alliance, we do a lot of very heavy mapping data analysis. So we purchase an online ArcGIS online account, okay? So there is a cost associated with it. It gives us a few special bells and whistles, and now enables us to do in-browser data modification, data analysis, some processing, but there are some options available. So there are, free licenses that are available for students that are entering into programs at UMBC, for instance, Towson, College Park. If you are interested in potentially having the big fancy bells and whistles, they have a 3-week trial option, which will enable you to play around with the online platform, but they have a free public account. Okay, so a free public account is really geared towards individuals and nonprofits that are interested in displaying some really basic open data, maybe uploading a few small data sets of your own, and that's what we're going to be looking at today. So the free public account, again, is just a fantastic way to make these basic visualizations. So I'm a little bit spoiled. I have multiple different types of logins that I can do to get into ArcGIS Online, but I'm not going to show you our version that we use at BNEA. I actually have my own public account, and this is one that I use for demonstrations like this, and I also use for some of my own personal mapping. I'm very busy with BNEA, but occasionally I do have some downtime, and I like making maps for fun. So I'm going to log in. And again, if you go to arcgis.com, you can go down to create an account, scroll down to the bottom, and there you will have the option to create a free public account. Okay, I would not recommend using a public account if you are a for-profit business, if you're looking to use that platform for generating revenue. Esri does, so Esri ESRI is the company that that runs ArcGIS. They have business solutions for folks. So again, this is really geared towards individuals and towards nonprofits. So let me get my password in here and get signed in. Okay, so I am logged into my free public account. Okay, so I am able to do a couple quick things. I am always able to, with this free public account, if I want, upgrade. Okay, so if I say, yeah, I'd like to pay a little extra money to have all the fancy bells and whistles, but for the most part, I'm really able to get by with visualizing and analyzing a lot of data and just creating some really cool and pretty content that's in here. So I've logged in and I have some navigation at the top, and I'm just immediately going to go to this map tab. Okay, and this is going to pull up a brand new untitled blank map. Okay, so I assume it's pulling in some of my location settings or cookies or something, because it's zoomed me into the United States and says, okay, let's get ready to go here. Let's start popping some things in to our map. Okay, but let's stop for a second here. Okay, I've got the platform, I've got the map open, but I don't have any data just yet. Okay, so that's where that other tab, that data.census.gov, is going to come into place. Okay, and I personally love having the two tabs open so I can bounce back and forth and add in different data sets from the portal to the mapping platform. Okay, so I'm going to do that now. And here, I actually, this is really funny. My Zoom is hiding my very top bar here. So let's just scooch that a little bit. Okay, so here is data.baltimorecity.gov. So this is the city's open data portal. Okay, so as you come in and scroll down, they have a lot of different ways of accessing data sets that the city has published. Okay, so there's a few options here. So you can do a keyword search. So this will enable you to pull up data, and it will also enable you to pull up different maps or dashboards that the city has created as well. So that's a great way. If you kind of already have a sense of what you're looking for, you can search there. If you scroll down, they have some links to some existing tools that they've created, including some maps. But if you keep on going, you can eventually, once you get down the page, browse by category. So this will enable you to select a category, a theme, and click on one of these different icons, and you can find information. Okay, so what's also really cool, and I have to do a little plug for the Baltimore Neighborhood Indicators Alliance, we actually have some of our data sets that are included on here. So let me click on just one of these really quickly. And so I clicked on the transportation category. And as I scroll down, I can see that there's 22 results. So these 22 results, these could be 22 data sets, maps, dashboards, all of the above. And just going to scroll down, and we can see lots of really interesting data sets. So there's actually a data set in here about parking and moving citations. Okay, so we can see the title. So we can see parking and moving citations. We can see it was published by Baltimore City. We can see a little description. This data set represents information on parking and moving citations within the city of Baltimore. And then we can see some little details down below it. So we can see this was last updated on July 18th. So that's today. But we can also see, and this is why I'm actually not going to open this data set on a live demonstration, it has 7.8 million rows. So that's 7.8 million records. 7.8 million citations that are included in this data set. Okay, so lots of information in here, and the bigger the file, sometimes the longer it is to get it updated and uploaded. So again, lots of cool data sets in here. Sometimes I like just going through here and seeing like, what do they have on here? So apparently there's an edge of pavement. So we have a little map boundary that shows where like the boundaries are for paved roads. We can see it was last updated in 2011. Lots of interesting things. And occasionally, as I mentioned, you might be able to find some data sets, for instance, that the Baltimore Neighborhood Indicators Alliance has published. Look at this. We even have locations of red light cameras. This is open data. We can see where this is located. Okay, so I'm going to do a keyword search though, because I don't want to get too sidetracked. Remember, we've got our use case. We want to look at data for the Remington neighborhood, and we want to look at some of that housing data. Okay, so the first things first, I need to figure out, can I get a data layer that shows me the neighborhood boundary? Okay, that's the very first thing that I want to do. Okay, so I'm going to do a search for neighborhood. And as I start typing this out, it actually starts giving you some search recommendations. So I'm going to click on this first one, neighborhood. Okay. And so this is actually the data set that I was looking for. This is the brand new 2020 neighborhood file that the Department of Planning has published. And we can see here, we've got a little map. I'm hovering over these different geographies, and it shows different neighborhood names. Okay. And so we have some options here where we can download the data. So this would enable you to download it completely to your hard drive. You can open it up. You can do some fun things with it. We have on the right-hand side a little button. It's down towards the bottom right-hand corner. It looks like a little data table. I'm going to click on that. It'll give you a little preview of what's included in here. So here you can see that database. Okay, remember with GIS, you've got the visual, so we can see those blue outlined areas, but then this is the database that's behind it. So we can see neighborhood names, we can see population counts, we have some race and ethnicity data. There's lots of information. We have demographics that are included in here. So I want to use this. I want to get this included onto our map. Okay, so down in the bottom left-hand corner, they read my mind. They have a little button that says, I want to use this. So it's blue, and I'm going to click on it. Okay, so they give me a few options. So I can create a map. Well, I've already shown you guys that little map preview, but what I'm going to show you guys is something really neat and really cool. Okay, so rather than downloading the data, so let's say the city comes in and makes like a little tiny tweak or something to this data set. Okay, I don't want to be constantly having to check, make sure that what the city has published is the current, the most recent. Version control is a huge pain sometimes. Okay, so rather than having a downloaded version that might end up out of date, I want to point to this actual data set that's hosted here on the city's open data portal. Okay, and doing this will enable me to have an online tool that is constantly refreshed with the current latest and greatest version of this data. Okay, so what I'm going to do is click on this button here that says View API Resources. And when I click on that, it will expand and give me a couple URL, so we can see these are web links. Okay, these web links you can copy and paste and plug right into your map, and this will enable your mapping platform to call in this GIS data layer. Okay, so it's going to call in all of those different shapes, those neighborhood boundaries that are on the map, and it will call in and pull in this data set that we're looking at right here. So it has a little icon. So we're going to go with Geo Service. So this will enable us to take and grab this information. I'm going to click this button, and it's now copied this. I'm going to switch back to my mapping tab. Okay. And now it automatically has layers open. So this navigation on the left-hand side. So this is where I can start pulling in these pieces of open data that I want to get mapped out here. So I just copied that link. I would like to add it into my map. So right here, we have this button with a drop down where we have add. I'm going to click that arrow drop down, and I am going to select add layer from URL. Okay, when I click on it, it will open up this new box here that will enable me to now paste in that URL that I copied. Okay, so I've pasted this in here, and then down in the bottom right-hand corner, I'm going to add this to the map. And just like that, I've taken the data that was on the city's open data portal and I've plugged it into my own map. Okay, so I can click on it, and I happen to click on Roland Park, and all of this information that just appeared in this little pop-up window, it's that same data that was on the city's portal. Okay, so all of it is now plugged into my map. So best practice, anytime you do anything with a map as you're working on it, save your progress. So on the left-hand side here, we have a little icon. Okay, it's a little file folder. Anytime you make changes, there's going to be a little blue dot next to it. So that's another way to kind of keep track of the work that you're doing here. So I'm going to click on this, and I'm going to save as, and this will enable me to save my map. Okay, and this is just saving for my own private personal use at this point. So I'm going to call this my Remington housing map. Okay, so we can put in some tags. So some tags, these are keywords that will enable you eventually, if you've got a ton of data and information in here. Binya, I want to say we have like nearly 2,000 things uploaded into our account. It's so tough to find it sometimes. So tags can be just a great way of pulling in information. So I'm going to type in Remington. Okay, and that's one tag. I'm going to hit my enter key. So that's added in one here. And I'm going to put in housing because that'll be my next data set. Enter. Okay, got that in there. And then summary, I can put in a really quick little, set of keywords, additional keywords here if I want, or a little demonstration. This is a map I made for Baltimore data week 2023. And now I'm going to hit save. So this is saving the map. Okay, so this is saving this view that enables us to plug in, and we can see all of the neighborhoods in Baltimore, and they're pink. Okay, let's do a couple extra steps with this map though. Okay, because I want to look just at Remington. The rest of the city is great, but I have a very specific focus here. So what I want to do next is filter. Okay, so if we think about everything that's included, so we had those neighborhood names, total population, all of those attributes that are in that database, they can be filtered to give you that custom view that you would like to see saved onto your map. Okay, so over here on the right-hand side, we've got a lot of buttons. Okay, and this third one down that looks like a funnel, this is the filter button. So I'm going to click on the filter button, and I now need to click on this next button to add an expression. Okay, so I need to create some sort of statement that tells the system, this is what I want to look at. Okay, so in this expression, name is the name of the neighborhood, but I could select something else. So I could, if I wanted to filter on population, some of the race fields, but I want to do name. So name is selected, and then I can do lots of different types of statements. So it is a particular neighborhood, or it is not something that I've specified. It includes or excludes, contains. So there's a lot of fun ways that you can start filtering this data. So it's already pre-selected Able. Able happens to be alphabetically the first neighborhood, but I can do a keyword search for Remington. Whoops. that didn't work. We type more oh goodness, I am clicking off of things. I am having some user error here. Shoot, what am I doing wrong here? Live demos, folks. Here, I'm going to scroll. If one thing doesn't work, let's try the other. So I can scroll all the way down, and these are all of the neighborhood names in Baltimore City. Oh, there it is, Remington. Okay, and so this is that little preview. So I can see the Remington neighborhood is selected, and I'm going to hit save. And now this has updated the map to just show where Remington is the neighborhood that is shown. Now, as we can see, our little friend, the little blue dot, has shown up. So let's save the map. Save, because we now have that little filter that's applied. Okay, I can use these buttons in the bottom corner to zoom in if I would like. And I can move this map around, zoom in with my cursor. Okay, so this is great. I've got the neighborhood in here, but I don't necessarily want a big pink blob in my map. So next thing I can do is change the symbol. So back on the right-hand side, I've got this icon here that says styles. So it's those couple different shapes. I can click on that. And I can scroll down and pick a style. Okay, so I'm showing currently just the location of the Remington neighborhood, but I want to change it. So I'm going to click style options. And this enables me, if I click on the little pencil here, to change this to something else. Okay, so I can specify the fill color. So that's the color that's inside those boundaries. I can change the outline color, and I can even make these transparent if I want. So I can also, so we have this little icon here. It's a circle with a slash through it. If I select that, it's no color in there. So this is a good option if you just want to show outlines. Okay, and then we can even adjust the width of outlines, for instance. So right now we're just under 1 point. So I'm going to bump this up a little bit. And as I do that, you can see in the background that line is getting thicker and thicker and thicker. That's a little too thick. Let's scale it down. Let's leave it at that one there. You can even put some fun patterns in here if you want to have dashed lines, if you want to have a solid line. You know, here's the best part about doing these maps. You can have fun with it. You can select different things that might work for you. And then when you're done, all you do is click done and done. Our little blue dots there. So let's save. Okay, so we now have the particular neighborhood that's in here. Let's add in the rest of that data. So let me come back to the city's open data portal. So I still have that neighborhood view back up here. I'm just going to click on Open Baltimore in the upper corner, get us back to the main page, and I'm going to do a keyword search for, oh my goodness, that was fast. So I typed in a V. This is the data set I'm looking for, vacant building rehabs. So this is a cool data set, and I just clicked on it. Let's get it open. We can see the summary here. This data set represents the location of vacant building rehabs located throughout the city of Baltimore. Okay, so it's the same sort of thing. You can download it. I'm going to open up the little table so we can see the different fields in here. So we can see the specific block and lot where these vacant properties are located. We can see the date that a permit was issued. And we can see some additional information. We've got neighborhood in here. So, hey, that's another thing that we can filter. But we can also see some information about the zoning. So what something might have been. So if these are different, existing use, this is what it was when it was vacant. Proposed use, this is what it's going to turn into. Okay, and so we can see we've got multiple different years in here, just in these date issues, 2023, we've got a 2018, 2019, lots of great information in here. So same thing, I want to use this data. I'm going to view the API resources. I'm going to grab the geo service because again, I don't want to be responsible for updating this myself. Okay, let's let the city keep updating it. Let's come in here, add layer from URL. See, we're getting faster. We're getting familiar doing this. Add it to the map. Boom. We've got some dots on the map. Okay. So we can do the same type of thing here. We just want to look at Remington. Okay. So I'm going to come over filter. See, we're getting fast. We're getting good at this. Okay, I'm going to do neighborhood is. See, I don't trust typing this in, but let me see. Rim. See, searches are not behaving for me today. So here's one of the cool things though. So we can actually click this button and we can do some sorting because it wasn't automatically coming in as alphabetical. Let's see. So let's do Remington and we can actually see the count. We have 53 dots in the Remington neighborhood. Save it. Boom. Okay. So we can now see, and let's save it real quick, locations of these vacant building rehabs in the Remington neighborhood. Super cool, right? So the dots are great. You know, we can spend some time, we can set some different color codes. You know, we can do some interesting ways of visualizing it, but I also just want to show, we have this little button here that is on the right-hand side called aggregation. And so if I click on that, I have a couple different options here. So I can actually cluster this point level data. So I'm going to click this box, enable aggregation, and it takes all of those individual points, okay, finds ones that are close to one another and creates a proportionally sized dot on the map, and then adds in a little label so we can see that there has been a lot of properties that were vacant that have now been renovated in the very central part of the Remington neighborhood, okay? So this is just a really interesting and fun way for us to be able to pull this data in here, okay? So I see there's a really good question in the chat. So what if this data set doesn't have neighborhood info? Could you filter by an attribute in a different layer? So unfortunately, with the free public version, you cannot, but with the paid license that comes with ArcGIS, you can do some analysis. So this would give you a couple extra buttons that would enable you to do a location analysis so that if you have that point level data, for instance, and you have a reference. So in this case, our reference here would be this outline, this polygon of this particular neighborhood. You can relate them to one another and then append that neighborhood name. So in this case, Remington, we can get that appended in to that data set and do some analysis. Can we add our own data from our CSV combined with the open data? Yes, we can. Thank you for that question in the chat, Michael. So I'm going to show you guys something super quick because I know we're running late on time. So I'm just going to open up Excel. So I had mentioned, you know, hey, here's a fun option. Let's add in some actual data that I might have created myself. So here's an Excel. I'm going to call this one here. Let's see, I'm just going to have name. So a great point example that I can think of in the Remington area is the Church of the Guardian Angel, and it's Cromer Hall. That's where our neighborhood association gets together and meets for events and whatnot. So I'm going to put in Cromer Hall, okay? But here's the thing though, I need some sort of spatial information to actually get this uploaded onto the map. So here's where it gets tricky, but I'm going to teach you the super quick workaround. Okay, so I'm going to go over. So I have Google open for a reason. I'm actually going to go to Google Maps and I'm going to show you my little cheat. Okay, so maps.google.com. So what I'm going to do to pull in location information, so in this case, specifically latitude, longitude, to get into my data set, let me show you what I'm going to do. So I am going to find this location on Google Maps. So here is actually our meeting location. If you right click with your mouse, the first thing that it will give you is latitude and longitude coordinates. So these are those X and Y coordinates that you can plop onto a map and plot out some data and information. So if you click on this very top one, click, that copies it, and then I can paste this into Excel. Okay, so here's something that my 7th grade teacher taught me. Latitude has attitude, and it always wants to go first. Okay, so when you have these coordinates that are separated with a comma, that's latitude, and then you have longitude. So you need to separate these out though. Okay, so latitude and then longitude. So I'm just copying and removing out some of these pieces here. So we now have latitude, longitude separate. I deleted out a comma that was in there. Okay, and then I'm going to save this. Remington, and I'm going to save this as a CSV. So you need a CSV, a .csv. Save it. This is what you can then upload to your map. So let me switch back to Chrome. And I know I'm going a little fast, but so this add button here, okay, I'm going to click on it, but I can add a layer from a file, okay? So this is one way that I can then upload that CSV file. So I have it saved on my device, saved it on my desktop, I'm going to open it up, and it's going to scan through and it's going to automatically detect those fields that I put in here. So the name, the latitude, longitude. And I'm going to say next. And it automatically, in this case, detects that I have latitude and longitude data. And I can add that in. Latitude is matching to lat, longitude to long, and put in next. And so I can add in some additional details about this brand new thing I'm uploading. Okay, so I'm going to just call this Cromer Hall is the name of it. Create and add to the map, and it is going to pull in that information that I just grabbed, and it just put the dot on the map. Okay, so if you have a lot of data that has location information, okay, there's a couple quick ways that you can manipulate it. So for instance, Eric suggested in the chat, if you've got a lot of that data like that, you can do some fun things in Excel. I'm sorry, they're fun for me. Some things in Excel, like the text to table. You can, set it so that it sees that comma in there and says, okay, let's split these into 2 separate things in Excel. Again, and I promise I don't work for ArcGIS, but the free version doesn't enable you to pull in addresses like 123 Main Street and plop onto the map. But if you have the paid license version, which is a couple $100s a year, this will enable you to do that geocoding process to read in street addresses, and you can upload them to your map. Okay, and so the paid version also enables you, just want to mention quickly, because I know we're at about a minute, enables you to draw on the map itself. Okay, so I just created that point, that's dot onto the map, but if you wanted to sketch freehand, you could do some things there as well that will enable you to draw out specific areas that you might want to highlight onto your map. Okay, so let me just do one last save. So there's a lot of other cool things that we didn't necessarily have the time for today, but I would just like to thank everybody for joining. We are going to be very busy this week, but if folks have any questions about this process of doing some really fun things. So like right now, if you click on the map, you get that pop-up of the demographics. There's some cool things that you can do with that pop-up. Okay, if you'd like to learn more, feel free to reach out. So we will be at the University of Baltimore on Friday. We will be taking a look at lots of cool topics, different data sets. I imagine some of the BNEA staff are going to be dropping some links in the chat, but hopefully this is a good starting point that if you have never really used these open data sets, that you can start getting more comfortable in plugging all of this information in here. So again, I'd like to thank everyone for joining. Thank you for all of the great comments and questions in the chat. And I really hope that you're able to join us for more of our virtual sessions. And if you're available, join us in person. So I am Cheryl Knott, Assistant Director for the Baltimore Neighborhood Indicators Alliance. Follow us on social media, BNIA JFI. Thanks. And Alania, I see that comment in your chat. Yes, yes, I would love to come and talk to your students. So we'll be in touch.
Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. We will be in touch with a survey about this presentation today. That'll be coming in an email soon. Please fill out that survey. It helps us with our sponsors. It helps us get a better sense of who's attending these, and also so that we can improve our programming going forward. Cheryl, thank you so much for preparing this. This was a absolutely fabulous talk today. And please join us tomorrow for our next Lunch and Learn with the Enoch Pratt Free Library. We look forward to seeing you tomorrow and the rest of the week.